So I think we are ready to move on to part one of this workshop, which will be comprised of 3 presentations from the players in Northern Germany. And please feel free to ask questions using the Q&A panel you see from the bottom of your Zoom application. And then you can just type in your questions so that we'd be happy to collect them and convey it to the speakers of our event. And you can also use the chat button to share your comments and feedbacks. And I think that's it. Now, I think we can really begin. Our first speaker is Mr. Jan Respens, Managing Director of Renewable Energy Hamburg. He will brief us on the green hydrogen economy of Hamburg.
Yes, good morning. Good afternoon to everybody. I hope my presentation is visible for everybody now. I hope the presentation is visible. Yeah. Good afternoon to everybody in Korea, dear Consulate General Jung, dear Sanada Westhagemann. Good morning, everybody in Germany. I would like to give you a brief overview of the state of play, the status quo in hydrogen in North Germany, in the Hamburg metropolitan area. My name is Jan Respens. I'm the Managing Director of the Renewable Energy Hamburg cluster. A very brief overview on our cluster. Our cluster was founded in the year 2010 with 54 members. Today we represent more than 200 member companies. And on the next slide, and they represent, of course, wind energy, onshore, offshore, hydrogen, sector coupling. We see quite a revival of the solar energy. We're talking about renewable heat providers and also about biomass companies. If you look at the renewable energy landscape in the Hamburg metropolitan area, we see 4 sectors: technology providers on the left, the big wind turbine manufacturers, but also many other technology providers. We have quite a lot of project developers, especially on the field of offshore wind. Hamburg is the center of German offshore wind development. We have a lot of service providing companies and also a number of research and education institutions in Hamburg, but also in the area around Hamburg. If you look at our cluster strategy, this is quite a complicated strategy house. But what is important, I think, is everything is based on the expansion of renewable energies. We have heard before in the year 2020, 45% of electricity was produced from renewables in Germany, and it is quite a high level already. Then in the middle, you see we need, of course, a strong grid and infrastructure to increase the level of renewables. And on top, you see that we, in the strategy house, you see what we call sector coupling. We need to use electricity to decarbonize other sectors. And on the left side there, you see what we call the hydrogen economy. And in our cluster, we want to focus on the domestic production of green hydrogen in Hamburg, but also in the metropolitan region of Hamburg. Of course, as a port town, Hamburg is also focusing on the import of green hydrogen from abroad. And we want to focus on the use of hydrogen in several consumer areas in the industry, in the transportation sector, especially trucking and shipping, but of course in the long term also for aviation. That is the focus areas for hydrogen in our cluster. But also I want to say hydrogen is not really new to the Hamburg metropolitan area. We have seen projects since more than 15 or 20 years. And I have summed up quite a few on here. In the middle, you see one of the first hydrogen fueling stations in Germany, in the Hafen city, really in the center of Hamburg. On the left side, you see the first 1 megawatt class PEM electrolyzer, which was also operated in Hamburg by E.ON. On the right side, you see a district in the southeast of Hamburg where hydrogen is mixed into the natural gas grid for heating and for testing of infrastructure. And you see two more projects in Schleswig-Holstein where hydrogen is used for operating buses, but also to feed hydrogen into the natural gas grid. So it is not new to us. We have seen more than 10 years of development of this technology in our region. Yes, what was mentioned before is that the federal government of Germany has launched a national hydrogen strategy. It is a long document with a lot of details. I would summarize it. The target for 2030 is to realize 5 gigawatt of electrolyzer power using green electricity in Germany. And on the next slide, you see that there is also a North German hydrogen strategy. And what you see is that the level of ambition is actually bigger than on a national level. The 5 North German states also want to realize 5 gigawatt of electrolyzer power by 2030. And of course, that is logic because we have a lot of renewable power in the north of Germany due to the wind energy. So it is, I think, it's not a contradiction. It is logical that the north states within Germany are focusing for quite a lot of electrolyzer in the next 10 years. A small film that I would like to show you summarizes the development in and around Hamburg quite well, I think, and I hope I can start it and you can actually also hear the sound.
The Port of Hamburg is a vast interconnected industrial zone. Steel, copper, mineral oil and chemical industries can all be found here. These industries predominantly use fossil fuels for their processes. The climate plan and climate protection legislation of the Hanseatic city of Hamburg plans to reduce these CO2 emissions by 55% by 2030. Hamburg aims to be climate neutral by 2050. This will require a new approach.
Und da kam natürlich die Idee auf zu sagen, finden wir heute.
And then, of course, we hit on the idea of finding a material right now that could help us decarbonize the port and its industry. And so the idea occurred to me, where might we find a suitable location to, let's say, convert from green electricity to green hydrogen in future, with the aid of a large electrolyzer, so that in future we could provide our consumers in the port with green hydrogen, that is, and this is the crucial factor, CO2 neutral.
Der, und das ist das Wichtige daran, der CO2-neutral ist.
To build an electrolyzer with a capacity of 100 megawatts in the middle of the port of Hamburg by 2025 is what a consortium of 4 companies plans to achieve with the Hamburg Green Hydrogen Hub project. Here, hydrogen will be produced from green energy generated by wind power plants in the North Sea and neighboring federal states. It forms the centerpiece of the Hamburg hydrogen network and will supply various consumers of the port region. As a location, Hamburg brings together optimal infrastructural and technical conditions for building a hydrogen economy. Prospectively, this could be fueled by on-site electrolysis, maritime imports, and connections to a European hydrogen grid. Thanks to the geographical proximity of hydrogen production to industrial consumers in the port, the largest industrial energy consumers can initially be reached with only 60 kilometers of new hydrogen pipeline grid. The hydrogen can be used by the surrounding heavy industry, for instance in order to manufacture CO2 neutral steel. An ideal basis for quickly establishing a hydrogen economy that serves as a role model, one which covers the entire value chain, and whose target CO2 savings give a powerful boost to climate protection. Besides heavy industry, logistics and the maritime industry can also utilize the hydrogen. This includes both cargo ship traffic as well as the infrastructure at the container terminals and the Hadag fleet of Hamburg ferries. Every day, 17,000 trucks drive into the port. If we want to do this more climate neutrally, then I firmly believe that this can also be achieved with fuel cells which utilize hydrogen. Freight traffic also has enormous potential in the coming years, whether it's also with fuel cells or with batteries, which some vehicles are already running on today. At present, a hydrogen industry is emerging in many European countries, such as Scandinavia and the Netherlands, to which Hamburg can be linked by pipelines and ship traffic.
Wir können einen Weg beschreiten,
We can strike a path that takes us towards a climate-neutral port, but with the assurance that we do not intend to lose any jobs. On the contrary, we want to create new ones. That means that we're developing an economy where, as I always say, ecology and economy in partnership with science leads us towards a future-proof, climate-neutral world.
Gepaart mit der Wissenschaft in eine zukunftsfähige, neutrale, klimaneutrale Welt.
Okay, that small movie summarized quite a lot of things that I will now go into a little bit more detail. First of all, the German government has selected almost 60 important projects of common European interest, IPCEI projects. And if you take a look at the German map, you will realize that many of those hydrogen projects are located in the north of Germany, because we have a lot of renewable electricity available. And what you can see here is that quite a lot of projects are located in Hamburg or near Hamburg. Also, we see the project in Heide that will be presented later, but there is a clear focus on North Germany because we have a lot of green electricity available. The project in Hamburg, overall, we're talking about 12 partners that have a closed value chain. We're talking about 1.6 billion euros of total investment as for the hydrogen production, but also for the hydrogen consumption partners. And we're talking about 520 million euros of public funding by the German federal government and by the city of Hamburg. And in total, we can save 1 million tons of CO2 until the year 2030 through this project. And as said in the movie before, the Hamburg port is very compact. So we need only 60 kilometers of special hydrogen pipeline to realize this project. And you see for the electrolyzer, we have 4 partners, Vattenfall, Wärme Hamburg, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, and also Shell. And then on the consumer side, you see 8 companies, starting with Airbus, HHLA, which is the container terminal operator, the Hamburg Port Authority, ArcelorMittal, green steel production, the city cleaning company Stadtreinigung, and the ferry and tugboat operators. They all want to use hydrogen in their production. So we have a closed value chain, and this is very important. Otherwise, we will not have an economic system. Yeah, this is the Hamburg Green Hydrogen Hub. We will have a separate presentation later on, so I will be very brief. What I want to show here is, of course, it is important that that the electrolyzer is connected to a very strong electricity grid, and that is possible because it is the location of the Moorburg coal-fired power plant that was abandoned a year ago. But also we see the hydrogen grid already in the harbor, and we see also the heat grid, the red line, because we want the partners want to use the excess heat from the electrolyzer for the district heating in the city of Hamburg. But we will hear later on more about this. There is one more project in the north of Germany, between the city of Hamburg, the state of Schleswig-Holstein, and the state of Mecklenburg-Pomerania. And this is a network of a little bit smaller hydrogen production and consumption areas. So we see a number of hydrogen companies in Hamburg. The electrolyzer operated by Hansewerk, which is an E.ON subsidiary with 25 megawatts of power. And then we see several users of hydrogen. And then you see 3 more hubs, one in Schwerin, which is in Mecklenburg-Pomerania, and 2 in Brunsbüttel and in Haurup, which is in Schleswig-Holstein. So this project called the North German Living Lab is having a geographic larger area. We're talking about 300 million euros of federal support money involved. and quite a lot of partners involved. So that's the second larger consortium that has been created and started operation by 1st of April this year. And with that, I think, or I hope I have given you a quick overview on our situation in hydrogen in the north of Germany, and I look forward to the rest of the presentations and then to your questions. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Mr. Rispens, for your enlightening presentation. For your information, I have heard that Mr. Rispens must leave earlier because of his prior commitment, but we will have Mr. Tom Mikus from Renewable Energy Hamburg, who will be here with us for the Q&A session. So please save your questions until then, and then we may turn to our second presentation. Now we have Mr. Rainer Hesse and Mr. Kay Halk from Heide Development Agency, who will give us a presentation on Westküste 100 and the PTX Business Park in Heide. Thank you.
Thank you, Consul Kim. Do you see our shared presentation?
Yes, it's looking beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot. Yes, good morning to Korea and good morning to Germany from Heide. Dear Consul General, dear Consul Kim, dear Senator Westhagemann, and ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rainer Hesse and my colleague Kai Halk, and I would like to thank you for your inviting us to today's workshop. And we are pleased to present the Reallabor Westküste 100 and the PTX Business Park in Heide, which is currently in planning. So we have brought 9 slides for you. I will present the first 5 slides, and Mr. Halk will present slides 6 through 9. First, we would like to briefly introduce the Entwicklungsagentur Region Heide, in English, the Development Agency Region Heide, and our region. The Development Agency is a regional economic development agency. We work on behalf of the city of Heide and the communities in the surrounding area. Our region is located about 1 hour's drive north of Hamburg. Almost 37,000 inhabitants live in an area of 190 square kilometers. Around 133,000 inhabitants live in our rural district of Dithmarschen. Agriculture and a lot of landscape characterize our region, but science also has its importance. More than 2,000 students are enrolled at our University of Applied Science and learn everything about the green energy industry and tourism. We are living at the Westküste, in English West Coast, and this is a renewable energy region. A quarter of the wind power produced in the state of Schleswig-Holstein is generated in wind turbines in the district of Dithmarschen. Around 900 wind turbines provide nearly 2,200 megawatts of wind power. We produce so much power here that we can't take all of it away within Germany. German laws offers the opportunity for producers of wind power that cannot be used to receive compensation. In 2020, compensation payments to wind power producers in the state of Schleswig-Holstein amounted to 310 million euros for 3 gigawatt hours of not used electricity. At the same time, plans are underway for more offshore wind energy capacity. In the next few years, another 4 gigawatts of wind power will be added from the North Sea. This electricity will arrive at the technical electricity infrastructure in Heide and will be distributed from here. Even new power lines to the south of Germany will not be able to absorb and transport this electricity. At the same time, it is a physical fact that gas pipelines can transport more energy content than power lines. These are important reasons to build a PTX infrastructure. Westküste 100 is the beginning of the hydrogen economy in our region. 9 companies, the University of Applied Sciences and the Development Agency have joined forces to form a consortium. The German government is funding the project with 36 million euros until 2025. The consortium wants to produce green hydrogen from offshore wind energy and use the heat and oxygen produced in the process. The hydrogen is to be used both for the production of climate-friendly fuels for aircraft and fed into gas grids. The goals are as simple to say as they are complex to implement: more sustainable flying, building, and heating. In the first step, we want to build an electrolysis plant with a capacity of 30 megawatts. Further expansion stages are planned. The plan is to supply 3 products from 2023: hydrogen, oxygen, and heat. We will use the heat in the district heating grid of the city of Heide for commercial applications and consumptions in private households. To compensate for production fluctuations in the electrolysis process, we store the hydrogen in an existing salt cavern. In this way, we ensure a steady flow of hydrogen for all users. We also blend hydrogen into the existing natural gas grid in a part of the city of Heide. The objective is a 20% share of natural gas, but not least, a hydrogen filling station near the Heide highway will offer the gas to automobile and heavy truck travel. In the future, the oxygen will be delivered at the Holcim cement factory 40 kilometers away. Holcim is one of the world's largest producers of building materials. The oxygen from electrolysis is fed into the combustion process at the cement plant. The carbon dioxide is captured and used together with the hydrogen as a raw material in industrial methanol production. In this way, Holcim avoids 1 million tons of CO2 every year. In further project, we intend to produce synthetic fuels for aviation, shipping, and road transport. Overall, Westküste 100 offers complete sector coupling. We use all products of electrolysis and achieve high efficiency. We create decarbonized industrial processes and develop non-fossil business models. And I now ask Mr. Halb to present the PTX Business Park.
Thank you, Mr. Hesse. The PTX Business Park in the region of Heide, it's an infrastructure of buildings to have all the partners and industries upcoming the next years in the region of Heide directly at one spot, at one hotspot for the PTX industry. So basically, we are going to build buildings for offices and for laboratories. That is the part we are going to start with. And in these offices, all companies can settle. The basic idea to have a think tank here comes from the renters. In this building, we aim to have companies growing up, so startups in this industry. We want to have established companies already in this industry, and we want to combine those two industrial parts with science parts. So we also want to integrate in our park the science institutes, e.g. our ITE from the West Coast University. So in this building, in this office building, we have all those companies together and working in directly together. They create new ideas, and those new ideas they can get to our demonstration platform. This is planned to be an outside area where you are able to have demonstration prototypes for testing in a direct system directly connected to our grid. The location of our PTX Business Park is directly near our projects and our infrastructure. So we are about 1 kilometer far away from the project of Westküste 100. And all the partners we have in this project are going to rent spaces in our PTX Business Park. So the advantages for companies settling there is to have a direct link to those partners, a short way to communicate, to exchange know-how, and to discuss different problems in this topic. Also, you are integrated in a network of all the partners in this park and in our network from 1 to 100. Furthermore, you are located near the city. So this city center of Heide is about 3 kilometers away. And if you are going to expand your settlement in the area of Heide, we are going to create a PTX cluster with direct renewable distribution of energy, not farther than 3 kilometers away. So in this park, we offer all-inclusive services for companies with laboratories, offices, research panels, and an existing network with our partners in the region of Heide. Thank you. So our presentation in summary, in the region of Heide, we offer one of the best conditions for sustainable energy production. We have a lot of wind here. Maybe we have in the north coast the best condition of all of Germany. We are already a pioneer in the hydrogen economy. We are working in this field since more than 10 years. And we have the natural and technical infrastructure, for example, the caverns in the region. Yes, we are going to have a framework in this area. We're going to create it for new businesses to have retaining workers, providing skill training in this park. And so you find everything you need here in the region to get to settle and to develop your skills. Yes, and we want to take advantage of all opportunities offered in this region by building up a decarbonized energy economy together with the whole North area. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Mr. Hulk and Mr. Hesse, for your presentation. And I think this is a beautiful example of an upstream value chain in Northern Germany. And now I may turn to our last presentation for part 1, which will also focus on the value chain of green hydrogen in Hamburg. So we will have Mr. Rainier Waters, Senior Strategy Advisor of Vattenfall. He will explain to us about the Hamburg Green Hydrogen Hub in Moorburg.
Will you, I'll put the presentation online, right? So, yes, welcome. My name is Reinier Waters and I work for Vattenfall, which is a utility, and I especially work for the renewables division. You might also know Vattenfall from some other industrial decarbonization projects, especially in Sweden, where the company is originally based. We have started a journey to see how we can become fossil-free in one generation, not only Vattenfall, but also the entire country. And one of the big projects that we have been doing there is to see if we really, together with the steel industry, can develop fossil-free steel. And there we have started the first fossil-free steel plant and actually have now made the first fossil-free steel in Sweden that has been used for a big truck in the mines. And the next step that we're also taking to see which opportunities are actually there on the continent and in other locations in Northwestern Europe. And we have especially turned to Hamburg for several reasons with the Hamburg Green Hydrogen Hub. And I'm hoping to give you a little bit more insight into that next to the things that you have already heard. As said, the Hamburg Green Hydrogen Hub is a 100 megawatt electrolyzer that we would develop at the site of Moorburg. Moorburg is a coal-fired power plant, 1600 megawatts, so a pretty big and also a pretty new coal-fired power plant, where our company has decided to actually bring it offline because it was incompatible with our own journey to become fossil-free in one generation. And as part of that decision, we have also started looking into new possibilities of reusing the site for future technologies. And then in close discussions with both the city of Hamburg and also partners and off-takers, the idea for this 100 megawatt electrolyzer emerged. Need to go into detail that much because this has already been stated. What is important to know is that the German government has set a clear focus on the development of green hydrogen and hydrogen solutions for Germany, also with a main goal to decarbonize the country beyond electricity. So Germany has been very effective in increasing the supply of renewable power. I think the country already has about 45% of renewable power in its mix. And the next step really is, which has been started by the previous government, but will even be taking up more now with the new upcoming government. The next step is the other sectors. And there's a very big focus on both the transport sector and the industrial sector, and especially energy intensive industry. And with this Hamburg Green Hydrogen Hub, we also really want to enable that process. What is important here, the government has made quite a bit of funding available for green hydrogen solutions, because we all know they will be necessary in the future to decarbonize, but we also all know that the economics for renewable and green hydrogen are very challenging at the moment. This has been acknowledged by the government, so also quite a bit of funding has been made available to develop these projects. And the very interesting thing, or the very good thing actually in Hamburg at the moment, is that we have ended up in a situation where we have developed strong consortia and strong partners that basically cover the entire value chain. So from the production of hydrogen that we would cover with the Hamburg Green Hydrogen Hub, to the transport of hydrogen, and also the offtake of hydrogen. And this really creates an environment where you can develop end-to-end solutions, where especially in this phase where the market really needs to develop, you can already, with some support from the government, come to viable business cases and really develop an ecosystem for this has also been addressed a little bit, but I think it's really important to stress it, why Hamburg is such an interesting and good location for the development of green hydrogen projects. This is maybe also something that you would be able to reflect in other countries, because if you have these elements, it will become quite a bit easier to develop green hydrogen projects. First and foremost, to develop green hydrogen, you will need a lot of renewable power. It needs to be abundantly available, and it also needs to be very cheap in order to be able to compete with the fossil solutions. We certainly have that in the Hamburg region, and this will even further increase with the big additions of offshore wind power that we see in the region. And especially offshore wind power we see as the perfect partner for renewable hydrogen, because it really has a high amount of full-out hours. As you know, electrolyzers at the moment are still pretty expensive, so preferably you would want to run them base load. The renewable power that we have in Northwestern Europe that's closest to base load is actually offshore wind, which is more than 4,500 full-out hours, so more than 50% of the time. Another important thing is infrastructure to really develop this ecosystem. We start small in Hamburg, but as you can see on this map, there are also big plans in the Benelux region, so Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, to develop a hydrogen network by repurposing the existing low calorific gas network that will not be needed anymore in the future after the Dutch Groningen gas field will come offline. Next to supply and infrastructure, the other very important thing in Hamburg is demand. It's really abundantly available in the Hamburg harbor, and not only something for in the future, there is already existing hydrogen demand that can be served. And 4 and 5 is then really the support that we get from both government level as well as from the city of Hamburg to really enable such lighthouse projects. Here are highlights in numbers of the project. So 100 megawatt electrolyzer, we plan to produce about 11,500 tons of hydrogen per year, with commissioning from 2025 onwards. And we will supply the hydrogen as indicated to the energy intensive industry. We will also supply to heavy transport, so mainly trucking and shipping in the harbor is in focus at first instance. But on the longer term, Airbus, you might know, they have a very big plant in the Hamburg area. They are also interested in developing hydrogen solutions. And in order to be able to test them, they also need smaller quantities of hydrogen to start with, which will grow. And finally, we are also able to really achieve these 29,000 tons of CO2 emission reductions by also really optimizing the value chain end to end. That also means all the heat that will be generated in the electrolysis process, we will be able to really use it locally by connecting the electrolyzer to the district heating grid of Wärme Hamburg. And for that, we also have a very good partner on board, the city-owned Wärme Hamburg, which is the local utility that already operates a district heating network that can very well absorb these amounts of heat. And also in the future, when the electrolyzer capacity will be growing, so we plan for 500 megawatts by 2030, also these larger volumes can be absorbed by the city heating network, thereby improving the business case a little bit. And the same is also true for the usage of oxygen that will also is a byproduct in the electrolyzer project. With that, we are also slightly able to improve the business case. And because of the central location in the harbor, because this is, I think, something that is very important to recognize, the site that has been chosen is really located directly in the middle of the harbor with a lot of offtake possibilities, both for the hydrogen as well as for the heating directly nearby, so that it is possible to develop really local infrastructure and local grids to facilitate this project and really create synergies by developing this end-to-end solution. And when we talk about end-to-end solution, this is also why the partners that you see at the bottom have joined up together. So they all bring specific competencies to the project that make it possible to have the best result on the short term. So Vattenfall will bring in the site, so the site of the former coal-fired power plant and the renewable power that will actually combine from both offshore wind plus solar. And these two technologies have very complementary profiles that will also mean that you have more full out hours and a higher direct supply of renewable electricity. Mitsubishi will be responsible for plant design and also the integration of the electrolyzer in the existing power plant. Shell is more focused on the offtake of hydrogen, both on the transport side, but also industry side. And as indicated, Wärme Hamburg is on board as the city partner and will be super important also to optimize the utilization of the waste heat. And then finally, I wanted to show you a slide or a picture actually more of the Moorburg power plant site from the air, as you can also find it on Google Maps. So this is a little bit more zoomed in and you don't see the harbor so much around it, but you can imagine that just on the right-hand side, you have big facilities from refiners. The same is true actually on the southeastern side, where you also have several refiners that have a need for hydrogen. And towards the north, you have a huge container terminal and also several parties that are active in the steel and metal industry that also need a lot of hydrogen already now, but in the future even more if they really want to decarbonize their entire processes. I think this location in the middle of the harbor and the short routes to customer is really one of the most important things. And I think you will see, if you look at other hydrogen projects in Europe, you will see similar things, that the most promising ones are developed in these kind of maybe even port locations. And another big asset is that there is just a lot of relevant infrastructure already available at the power plant site. So very important, of course, is the electrical connection. So we used to push a lot of power into the grid. We're currently turning this around and using this very strong grid connection that we have to absorb a lot of renewable power in the Hamburg harbor and directly use it at different voltage levels. So both the 380 kV very high voltage level, but also the city level grid. We can also reuse quite a bit of electrical infrastructure for the electrolyzer that's already available on site. So that really helps. And then the plan is currently at the bottom of the slide, you see 2 round circles. These have so far been used as coal bunkers to store the hard coal. These sites already have quite a bit of permits for slightly more dangerous and flammable substances. And it also means that we can use these sites, these 2 coal bunkers, more easily for the development of these hydrogen technologies that have also higher permit requirements than many other things. We can also reuse the water purification installation that's already available at the power plant. And what's also very important, you might have already heard that the city-owned gas grid company, they have very ambitious and very relevant plans to develop a gas grid in the company. And they are basically also repurposing existing gas grids, like for example, the gas connection to Hamburg, to make them fit for hydrogen. So here also a lot of infrastructure can be reused. The same goes for the district heating infrastructure. And when we build new pipelines, we can also build them all together. So we can build hydrogen pipeline, district heating pipeline, and an oxygen pipeline at the same time, which of course reduces costs. And then finally, and this is more kind of a more longer term thing, we have a deep sea harbor at the left-hand side of the plant. And this deep sea harbor would also allow not only to fuel hydrogen capable ships, but it would also allow for the import of oversea hydrogen carriers. So hydrogen, for example, that would be produced in Australia or other countries with perfect conditions, and that can then be transported to, for example, Germany, and be here directly fed into the local and regional hydrogen gas grid. So that's an additional thing. And with that, I think I also end my presentation. I hope to have given you a little bit of a flavor why this location is relevant. And I also hope that it maybe gives some inspiration for looking for similar sites in Korea that would be equally, developing similar hydrogen projects. I'm open for questions.
So thank you very much, Mr. Waters, for your wonderful presentation. Hamburg has always been the case in Hamburg that had lots of attention from South Korea as well. It was even aired in our television shows. And I think we will be heading on to the Q&A session with maybe starting with a question for you, Mr. Waters, if I may.
Sure.
Sure. So could you be so kind to elaborate a little bit more about the players in your project, in your consortium, like who will be building the electrolyzer and who will be doing which kind of tasks, and yes, these kind of things.
So what we have tried to do is develop a consortium that really has, that creates mutual synergies, and where we really bring different elements to the project in order to make this successful in this kind of very early phase of developing these big hydrogen projects. So as indicated, Vattenfall is a party that has a big renewables portfolio. And in order to be able to say that we are really producing green hydrogen, we also want to create this direct link between renewable assets, so offshore wind and solar, and the electrolyzer, so that there's also synchronicity between electricity and the running of the electrolyzer. That's what we really bring to the consortia, and also this optimization game for the renewable power. Mitsubishi is really the party that has a lot of experience in building and optimizing plants, so plants design, and also is the party that is developing own electrolyzer capacity as well. But in order to really deliver the lowest cost of hydrogen to our customers, We also here really clearly go for a tender for the technologies. Maybe interesting also to know that we rather want to go for established technology in this case, so alkaline technology, again with the lowest cost instead of really testing out new things. And then Shell, what the company is doing is establish hydrogen as a kind of a separate fuel next to the ones that they already have. And Shell already has a very strong offtake network that we can capitalize on. And Wärme Hamburg is then, there's basically two things. On the one hand side, it allows us to optimize the usage of waste heat. And on the other hand, it also strengthens the cooperation with the city, which is of course very important for such a big project that also has a big infrastructure aspect.
Thank you so much, Mr. Waters. Now, I'm very happy for two things. First, we are not very much behind in our time. And the second part is that I already have many questions on the Q&A panel, so I'd be happy to share a few with our speakers in the morning. My question goes to Mr. Mikus in Hamburg Renewable Energy. So there are a couple of participants who are curious whether other companies, some outside Hamburg and some even within Hamburg, may join the North Germany green hydrogen network. Would there be any guidance on this issue?
So yes, as Mr. Waters already said, there are going to be some tenders. So this would be an option to get involved, I would say. But apart from that, the hydrogen network that was presented consists of these 12 companies. So they have a really strong background in Hamburg. So yeah, that depends on, I think, the company. And but what we as a cluster organization can always offer is that we somehow serve as the first access point to the hydrogen landscape in Hamburg. And that we are more than happy to welcome, of course, new member companies, and also to just get in touch with international partners and discuss, and then establish contacts into the industry. So this is would be my offer to whoever asked these questions. Just get in touch with us, and I think we can easily distribute questions and information.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mikus. And since I have you on screen, I would have another go for a question. So which would you say is the biggest challenge for the green hydrogen sector in Hamburg? Would it be the barrier in government regulation, or would it still be the lack of investment from the private sector?
I think this is a good question. I think I would not put it on the investment side because I think the investments are somehow planned with the companies, but maybe Mr. Waters from Vattenfall can add some information on that, what the status of investments is. But what we see currently is that we have a big issue with regulations. So right now there's a delegated act planned in the European Union. And this is not really in favor of such large-scale projects. So we really can say that it's the issues or the challenge is on the regulative side of these projects. So our fingers are crossed that we have some good news from Brussels soon.
Yeah, hopefully. And now I have a question for Heide, Mr. Hesse or Mr. Hulk. Could you tell us which companies and industries are potential users of your green hydrogen?
We have a wide range of sectors and industries that can use the green hydrogen within our project. It's basically the cement industry and the refinery production where we use green hydrogen. And also we have we want to synthesize the hydrogen to methanol, and with this methanol we have another project, it's called Kerosene 100, to create with methanol new synthetic kerosene for the Hamburg airport. So those are the basic sectors we are going to use in our project. The hydrogen, and another sector is the mobility sector. We have a company here in Heide, it's called Hypion, who is going to create hydrogen hubs for mobility, for the mobility sector. So all over Schleswig-Holstein, they are looking for potential places to create a mobility hub. And for those mobility sector, it's a good case to use the hydrogen.
Yes, and one point, please. We see hydrogen as a potential for a Swiss Army knife in energy, mobility, and chemistry, and so it's a core of a new economy.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hesse. And since I have you on screen, I would like to have a go for another question. So could you also tell us about the electrolysis technology are you planning to apply for VASQUS 100? And who will be building and running the electrolyzer? And in regard to this question, I also had a live question from one of our participants who were curious about the optimum capacity of electrolyzers in regard to the wind power in the region. I remember that you are building a 30 megawatt electrolyzer, which will be scaled up to 700. But if you could tell us a little bit more about this in terms of efficiency, it would be really great. Thank you.
The technology of the electrolyzer is not decided yet. At the moment, we are doing the basic engineering to identify the best solution. And possible is either alkaline or a PEM or a combination of both. The operator will be the joint venture. We founded a joint venture consisting of Ørsted, the world market leader in offshore wind farms. The hydrogen specialist Hynamics is a small enterprise in Berlin, and it belongs to EDF in France. And the Heide Refinery and the building materials producer Holcim. This four enterprises have founded a joint venture, and the basic engineering is just on running.
To the capacity of the electrolyzer, I can say something. We are not looking on the potential of renewable energy in the region, because we need to have a use case for the hydrogen. It's not creating hydrogen and then looking what we are going to do with it. The first step, 30 megawatt, is an amount of hydrogen we need for the own refinery processes and for the blending in our gas grid. The next step, with the 700 megawatt, is the amount we approximately need for decarbonization or for the carbon dioxide that is produced in the cement mill. So those are the two factors. First, 30 megawatt for the own refinery process, and the 700 megawatt is for decarbonization and using the oxygen in the cement mill. So we are not looking on the potential of the energy, we are looking on the use cases we have directly for the hydrogen, for the products.
Right, thank you very much. I think, I hope this has been an answer to our participant. And in this connection, I may raise the similar question to Mr. Waters and Vattenfall. Actually, two things. The first thing, again, about the optimal capacity regarding the renewable energy you have. You mentioned you would have large-scale solar as well as onshore and offshore wind. So if you have any insights to share about the optimization of using your renewable energy in your electrolyzer, it would be nice. And the other question I would like to have for Mr. Waters is that South Korea also relies heavily on coal for power generation. We rely like more than half of our power generation on coals. And would you say that Vattenfall would be able to share your experiences in transitioning coal power plants with South Korea and other parts of the world?
Let's maybe start with that one. So sharing experience, most certainly. On the other hand, really, when it comes to investments in new projects, Vattenfall has really a focus on Northwestern Europe, as we are a Swedish state-owned company. So it's unlikely that we would do bigger projects as maybe other ones would do in South Korea. But I think it's very important to share insights there, how to make this transition possible. And I think our company has also shown that we're very open to that in the past. With regard to your other question, so we basically need to kind of strike an optimum. So on the electrolyzers are still very expensive at the moment. There's a lot of capex involved, and on the basis of that, once we would have it, we would also like to run it 24/7. So maybe like somebody that buys an expensive taxi, he also wants to drive it as much as possible in order to make money with the investment. On the other hand, we need to make sure that we run the electrolyzer in the moments when the renewable power is actually cheap, because the cost of the power for green hydrogen production is really maybe even more, it is more important than the capex of the electrolyzer, and this is also because of requirements that are coming from both the European level and requirements that are coming from the German level. Quite strong requirements are being put on what we can call green and renewable hydrogen, and what is just hydrogen produced from power from the grid. So what we also really want to do is really deliver on the claim that it is not just hydrogen produced from power from the grid, but that it is hydrogen produced from renewable electricity. So that's why we want to do direct matching between the production of renewable power and the utilization of the electrolyzer, and still get to relatively high full load hours. And that's basically, on the basis of that, we basically try to combine technologies that are complementary and that jointly deliver more renewable power, deliver enough renewable power for the electrolyzer to get to, say, at least 6,000 full load hours. And we do that indeed by combining offshore with solar, and we also do that by oversizing the capacities that we make available for the electrolyzer. So it won't be 100 megawatts of renewable capacity that's being reserved for the electrolyzer, but it will be more, so that also when wind is blowing at half speed, so to say, we still have sufficient power to fully power the electrolyzer. And then one additional thing, which is also very important and also a big benefit of the project in Hamburg, we somehow need to create offtake flexibility. So normally, especially heavy industry is used to and also needs baseload supply of hydrogen, while the renewable power is very intermittent. A benefit in Hamburg is that we can partly rely on storage capacity in the hydrogen grid that's being developed. That's one thing. And on the other hand, we also have several off-takers that have different degrees of flexibility. So the steel industry, they really need kind of baseload supply of hydrogen in many cases. But the refiners, for example, they already have an existing hydrogen supply and would be relatively flexible in off-taking additional green hydrogen when it's available and not using it when it's not available. So that flexibility in storage and off-take is super important as well.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Waters. And I think this will be the end of our Q&A session for part 1. And thank you again, participants and speakers, for having your contributions to the active Q&A sessions. I think we still have opportunities for more questions after this workshop, because I'll be there to collect your prospective questions and maybe try to answer you or even connect you to the people who can answer them. So I'll get to this after the part 2 of the workshop, and I'll make some extra housekeeping comments as well. And now we are ready to take a 10-minute break. I'm very proud that we are only 10 minutes behind our schedule. So I'll see you in 10 minutes. We are now at 10:45 in Germany and 5:45 p.m. in Seoul. So I'll see you at 10:55 and 5:55 after 10 minutes. Thank you.